Welcome to the Political Matrix News. Politics, people, local, regional, national news. Political Matrix News keeps you informed. We have the sources, we have the truth from inside the political matrix.
Hello, folks. Welcome back to a Saturday version of the Political Matrix News broadcast. This is Greg Fink here with my wonderful partner in crime here, Scott Miller. How you doing today, Scott?
Just glad to have ended the week.
Well, it's the ending of a week for some people, but the beginning of a week for others.
Well, the end is always the beginning, and the one is always the beginning of another. So,
in the world of politics, like you and I've been doing politics here for 25, 26 years together, it never ends. I mean, I tell everybody every day is Monday and every day is Friday. Saturday and Sunday we actually throw in the middle of the week sometimes because it never really ever ends. And right now we're going back to a case that, the whole immunity issue came up with the Supreme Court about old cases. And basically we're actually retrying one of the cases here that they went against Trump on the 34 counts in New York, the Mr. Bragg hearing, I guess, or Mr. Bragg trial that he's bragging about, because that's the only thing he could brag about to get elected, is that he was promising he's going to go after Trump and do all this. And he did. But real quick, before we get into this, I want to make sure everybody likes and subscribes and follows us on all your social media platforms. We're on Twitter, which is now X. We're also on YouTube. We're on Spotify. And we're also on Facebook. So just make sure you follow us on all those places. And we're going to be on TikTok a little bit, if TikTok will allow this episode to be on there or not. We'll find out then. Because TikTok's very, is very ticky on how they let's talk on their TikTok. Because it's a little weird sometimes. I mean, they love Matt Gaetz. So anything we say about Matt Gaetz, they take off. Which is weird. So TikTok, the pedophile channel, loves, the weirdos.
Lord knows.
Yeah, well, let's go ahead and get into the trial here real quick of another sexual crime here that was allegedly a sexual crime, which is not really a sexual crime at all, because there's no crime at all with the sex, and they basically just threw 34 counts at Trump. Go ahead, Scott. Take it from there.
Well, it's interesting, the hysteria surrounding that Supreme Court decision, basically reaffirming presidential immunity. You think that it's because of some sort of concern about bringing down the republic and overly empowering a tyrannical president. But the reality is they knew that all of the lawfare that they had engaged in versus Trump was probably going to die as a result of it. And that certainly seems to be the case with Judge Cannon in Florida outright dismissing the case.
Exactly. That was a good case, actually.
Although that case wasn't about presidential immunity as much as it was about, or the dismissal wasn't about presidential immunity as much as it was the ability of the Congress to appoint a very powerful agent of the government, without any sort of oversight, other than the Attorney General saying, "Hey, this would be a good idea. We ought to do it." Unfortunately, the Constitution has a different view on that topic.
Imagine if Ken Starr had that kind of power.
Right. Well, you know what, though? Ken Starr, and that's something they've relied on is people that they've appointed in the past. But the problem is that there was an act of Congress that was passed to appoint Ken Starr that has expired, and they chose not to reauthorize it. And so that's, if they want to have special prosecutors, one way to do it, that would also actually be in line with the Constitution, is to say that we are giving our authorization, in advance, that this person, we're delegating the Attorney General to enforce our will in this case. All right, that would be a way that they could possibly do it, although that has some legal tenuous properties as well. But anyway, so with Judge Marchand up in New York, the problem is that and a funny narrative that they kept pointing out to was, why didn't the defense object to this? Why didn't the defense object to this? The defense was objecting to the very grounds that this case is ultimately going to be dismissed on, whether it's by Judge Marchand or the grown-ups at some appellate court, is that the bulk of the case that Bragg brought had more to do with Trump when he was actually the president. They came in and brought in Hope Hicks. They came in and brought Trump's secretary, the person who runs the Oval Office. They came and brought all these people that Alvin Bragg, in his summation, characterized as crucial testimony from these witnesses. And so it can't be a surprise when the defense is asking you, because the Supreme Court is currently considering presidential immunity that'll have a direct bearing on evidence that is going to be that the defense has already said they're going to bring forward. We should hold off until the Supreme Court makes their decision. Well, kids, they made their decision, and virtually everything that had any that was used to bring the indictment to begin with, all the way through to the verdict, is basically out. The only testimony that is in is some of the testimony of Michael Cohen and the testimony of Stormy Daniels, neither of whom are by themselves, without reinforcement from all of these people whose testimony was prohibited. Without those people, these other guys have absolutely nothing to say.
Exactly.
So this is going to get over. This case is going to go away just like all of the other ones are. Honestly, Fonnie Willis will probably be the next one to go down.
I think
because
so.
All these cases are on life support, and there's not a damn thing they can do about it. But to me, speaking as a political, political campaign consultant, someone who, Greg and I, that's our business. We run campaigns. We develop messaging, and we have seen everything from, we've walked door to door with people, and we've been backstage. We've seen it all.
You've seen all the indictments and everything.
Exactly.
One guy getting indicted 4 times. I mean, he still won the election.
Right. And
a fellow podcaster.
Yeah, I know, right? So we've seen it all, and I can already tell you that as soon as this thing gets kicked off, the refrain is going to be that he got off on a technicality. Well, I guess you can kind of say it's a technicality, or some people would call it the law.
I think he got found guilty on a technicality.
Well, that's the thing. The entire case was brought because they took 34 statute that they could invoke 34 charges on, except for the fact that the charges themselves were past the statute of limitations. And they were only able to resurrect them because they were going to use those to connect him to covering up another crime.
Yeah.
But the crimes that they were covering up were things that none of the people who actually had jurisdiction in those crimes had chosen to prosecute. In fact, a couple of them, the FEC in particular, the Federal Elections Commission in particular, had specifically declined to prosecute. They didn't. It wasn't through inaction. It was them saying, "We're not going to prosecute this."
Yeah,
so his technicality, he got off on he's getting off on technicality for a case they brought on a technicality, and they're going to be angry about that. Well, sorry, kids, that's not how it works.
I mean, technically, what they did was misdemeanor bundling, and so they bundled a lot of misdemeanors together. It's kind of like the housing crisis, really. You combine a whole bunch of subprime loans together and make it like a better loan and get people to invest in that. And so they basically, the Democrats, once again, kind of like the housing crisis, the Democrats, once again, they bundled all these misdemeanors together to make it look like one very pretty felony because they're basically covering up for something else that was to make it look like a felony. And there's really no transparency at all on what any of the issues were, and the fact that the only transparent thing that was there was they were out of the statute of limitations, and they never talked about it. But then bundling it together made it refreshed and new. So those that putting them all together to make a felony, that was not within the statute of limitations because that was in real time. And so basically, the whole thing, they actually created a crime. They created an entire facade. This entire thing was theater from day one, from Stormy Daniels and Michael Cohen, the two most political theatrical people, and Stormy Daniels' lawyer, Avenatti. who's another political theatrical person who should probably get an Oscar or an Emmy for his political Emmy. I think we should start, really paying attention here that most of these court cases are more or less theater. I mean, it's nothing but theater, period. The credibility, and that's the reason why the credibility is shot with a lot of it, is because there's no reality, there's no transparency, there's no truth at all in the scales of justice on this one.
I can't personally, I just can't get past. I mean, my big hang up, even if you accept them bringing the case to begin with, the part that I can't get away from is how they instructed the jury that they didn't have to agree on which crime that Trump might have been trying to cover up, only that he might have been trying to cover up a crime, but none of the things that they were referring to as crimes he had ever been convicted of. If in the media we had said that Donald Trump was convicted of tax evasion, or he was guilty of some campaign finance things, Trump could have sued us and won, because we know those things to not be true. He's never been in court a day in his life for tax evasion, or not, regarding this anyway.
And they have his taxes now too, by the way.
What?
They got his taxes now too.
Oh, right. Well, yeah, they finally got the taxes they were looking for years.
And they're looking for those for years. You're right. And how many criminal cases have come as a result of that?
None. The reason they wanted his taxes had nothing to do with compliance or anything, and everything in the world to do was picking through everything that they had to try to find something that they could take him to task for. Something they could mischaracterize into a scandal.
Well, at the same time, these same Democrats who are so thoroughly accurate on this have an inability to fix the border or to guard a building from him getting shot at several weeks later. Which, I mean, granted, there might be no paradigm, there might be no line of demarcation here, but I will say there is one connection. It's the same people who are after him for that are the same people who are running the Secret Service and just mishaps, very weirdly dropped the ball on a very important situation. And by the way, he's not going to stop his outdoor events. He's going to keep them going. And he wants them to step it up and get on their game and make sure he's safe. And so, I mean, it's going to be interesting. But we see how this trial here with Stormy Daniels, everything else. I mean, everybody wants to say there's no connection in all of this. It's one big cabal, and it really is. I mean, you and I know a lot of conspiracies are not really conspiracies. I mean, this is all one big cabal.
A lot of conspiracies aren't theories.
After. Yeah, these are conspiracy realities.
Yeah.
This conspiracy reality is that they're out to get them. They don't care if they can't get them in the court system, they're going to get them in a field or something like that. I mean, or somebody's going to get them in the field. Now, granted, we're not saying the Democrats went out there and tried to shoot Trump at all, because there's no criminal investigation saying that. There is, though, reality saying that they knew about it, and they're actually the Secret Service were actually on the phone with the law enforcement division and Butler at the same time the gunshot went off, on saying their question was, what do we do with the guy on the building? Because we have him in our sights now for 20 minutes with a gun in a backpack and on top of a building. What do we do? I mean, the whole idea, there's a Secret Service guy I was watching on MSNBC yesterday, which is kind of strange for me, and CNN both kind of trying to get the liberal aspect back to see if they have any kind of partiality here. And the Secret Service guys were saying they used to have green lights. Now they don't. So Mayorkas, give it back to them, okay? Or this new lady from Pepsi, who's ever in charge of the Secret Service now, who worked for Mayorkas. They need to give the green light back to the Secret Service, because they don't have it right now.
So one of the new narratives that are out there, one of the new questions that are out there right now, that I only became aware of this morning. So I've been a little disengaged, I guess, for the last few days. But, they didn't secure that building. They also didn't secure a water tower that's 300 yards away. And 300 yards sounds like a long way, but that's actual, trained sniper range. And you can see very clearly a person on top of that water tower with a perfect angle of on the president.
Right.
And when the shots go off, he kind of disappears behind some cover. And then when people start going, he eventually reemerges to kind of check things out, and then he disappears. Now, I don't. I mean, just from a general law enforcement perspective, regardless of the event going on, someone on top of a water tower ought to at least get your attention and say, "Oh, I didn't know there was work going on the water tower. That's kind of interesting." But without without work going on, and you've got a high-profile event, I would think that the water tower would be something that people would take a very close look at, if only the sniper, the counter sniper crew. But no, there's a guy that you can see walking around on top of that water tower.
Could he be the other shooter, possibly?
Could he be? I don't know. But, whether he is or not.
One question I have is, and I'm not familiar with the guns like you are, it's an AR-15 bullet. How big is that bullet for AR-15? You have an AR-15 around the house, I think.
Oh, I got loads of them. Hang on a second. Let me grab you one. Let's see.
And for the viewers out there, we're not going to show the gun because YouTube might block the video.
We're not going to show the gun.
For the gun, because of the liberal platforms out there who are.
Oh, well, you know what? As fate would have it, I'm out of ammo.
Oh, well, that's a good thing. But the thing is, I mean, is it possible that the sniper from the water tower was the one that hit the ear instead of the kid? Could the kid just have been a decoy and the sniper really being on the water tower?
Well, my opinion of that is going to be entirely driven by, you know what? Well, it depends on whether or not the AP photograph of the bullet traveling behind Trump is real or not. I think it's something that would take them a long time to manufacture.
Right. It's taking a New York Times article is where the photo came from. That within 6 hours after the event.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I thought he was an AP guy, but whatever.
Well, it's AP was in the New York Times, but yeah.
Yeah. Whomever may have shot that photo, if that one is real, then I don't think that the shot Trump shot came with sufficient elevation to have done that, because it's basically it would have the bullets kind of going like this, and for it to be in the water tower would have been more like this. If that bullet was like that, then I'd say that water tower was a very likely source of it. But with it kind of being a little more flat in trajectory, it seems consistent with having come from that kid. But the thing is, that water tower is directly behind. So I don't know, maybe. I don't know. From that distance, the bullet has a lot more drop in it, and I would still expect it to come from a lower.
The interesting thing is that there's 6 or 7 shots that were fired. Now, out of the 6 or 7 shots that were fired, how many of them do you think came from Secret Service? I think they only needed 1 shot. I think, just right to that guy's head. Or did
they may have only needed that, but they would have taken. They do overkill.
They do. Okay. So I didn't know. I mean, how many of those? That's one thing that nobody's really talked. There's been no press conference from the Secret Service, and people are willing to ask that question because they're the ones with the guns. Who are firing the shots besides the kid? The kid's dead. We can't talk to the kid, so we can't ask him how many shots that he fired, and nobody's really told us how many he's fired either.
Well, it's pretty easy to figure out how many shots he's fired. All you got to do is look at how much brass they found on the roof.
Yes, but nobody's telling us about any of that. That's the point.
Interestingly, when either the Senate or one of the Senate or House Oversight committees, actually got the Secret Service on a conference call fairly immediately after the event, the Secret Service Barbie didn't actually. I think they asked 4 questions. 3 of them came from Democrats, and then when the Republican got to ask a question, they half-ass answered the question, then hung up the phone. That's it. They didn't say "I gotta go." They hung up the phone. So the way that and frankly, I don't view that as cover-up activity. I view that as I made a huge mistake, and I'm tired of talking about it.
Right.
Activity. That's what kind of behavior that is.
And this is a reminder to everybody. This has been 1 week since this has happened. I mean, this has been just a week. That is it. And this is
a week today.
exactly a week today. And this is what little information we know. I mean, we don't even know, have any motive idea. We have no idea on the payroll for this kid. Or, I mean, it wasn't like this is one kid with one gun. This kid was fully armed at his house. And I was right. He had 12 other guns. And so it's not like he had 12 other weapons.
His parents had lots of guns.
Well, his parents also said a lot of them belonged to him. And he was going to the shooting range quite a bit here lately. And
well, so the gun he took wasn't his.
Exactly. The gun he took was his father's. And so I mean, it's very interesting. And because we don't really have any answers on what the motive was or why any of this happened, or even like we're asking today on how many bullets did he shoot, how many did the Secret Service shoot, how many did the local law enforcement shoot? How come we still don't know why the building wasn't covered? We have law enforcement saying that they were inside that building. We have Secret Service saying that they were inside the building, and both of them were saying they were not inside that building. They were inside the other building, and then the other building, and they weren't in that other building. They were in this one. It's literally like an Albert and Costello show on who's on first and who's on second. Nobody's on third, and home is dead. And so, I mean, it's a mess.
You know where the Secret Service, and those local law enforcement guys were? They were in the air conditioning.
Yeah, and the whole fact that they actually knew 10 minutes before Trump even got to the property and didn't even tell them is just astonishing. They knew about that guy for 3 hours. They knew about him for 2 hours. They knew about him for 1 hour. They had a photo of him walking around with a ladder and a backpack, for God's sakes. What you need a ladder for in an open field, guys? Come on. Get your fucking wagons out and figure it out.
Well, you
don't need a ladder in an open field.
Well, I get that.
Actually, some of the Secret Service thought that he might have been a cop.
Well, he's wearing camo, so I mean, he could have been. But regardless, I mean, I'm sure they thought he was local law enforcement. But the thing is that doesn't mean you don't ask. Well, I get that, but I mean, that doesn't mean. I get that there are a lot of possible, very legitimate, excuses for all this, or explanations for why this person was there. Why did he have a ladder? Why did he have a backpack? There are all kind of very legitimate reasons that could have been. The thing is that in a heightened security, situation, you go and ask the question. You don't say, "Oh, he's probably just here to change a light bulb." You say, "Hey, has anyone checked out that guy? The guy with the ladder? Have you had a conversation with him? What was your evaluation? Is it benign and we know who he is? Or I mean, they're questions. They're supposed to prompt questions. It's not it's not that he was there.
You and I have been to these things with bags because we have cameras and we have stuff. And you know what they do to us? They walk up to us immediately and say, "What's in your bag?" And they go through everything. Yeah. You and I have been searched by Secret Service numerous times at different events throughout Northwest Florida and at different political events around the state. I've
been to Trump rallies.
Exactly, and you go in there with a bag or anything, they start searching it immediately. They saw his bag, they didn't do anything. Nobody walked up to him and said, "Hey, what's in your bag? Hey, what's up with the letter, dude?" I mean, nothing.
I was at a Trump rally as a VIP. I sat behind Trump, and I still got questioned.
Yeah, we have press credentials for 3 of them. And we still got questions thoroughly through the press crowd. I
had party officials vouching. I had party officials vouching for me, and they still ask me questions.
Yeah,
because that's their job, and I didn't get upset about it because that's their job.
And just because this kid was wearing camo is basically he's a hippie kid wearing camo who didn't have the weight of. He's probably like 90 pounds soaking wet. So I don't think he's profiled as a cop. But for some reason they thought. For some reason, they thought he might be other law enforcement on the other building. I'm like, are you kidding? No, y'all just missed it. You missed it.
No, they were. Now, I want to preface this by saying that I'm not opposed to believing that that these conspiracies are real at all. Because, as Greg said, I mean, we've seen these conspiracies. But my go-to place is incompetence. It's people being lazy and
the whole idea they're told to stand down, and the rumor about them standing down is looking a lot less like a rumor, more like a reality. Especially whenever the sniper had them in his scopes for 20 minutes at that one spot, and nothing ever happened.
Let me tell you
So I
something.
think,
If I'm a counter sniper guy, and I would be laser focused on that kid the entire time. And the second I saw him raise that gun, I don't care if I had a green light or not, he would be dead.
exactly. So I mean, a lot of balls were dropped 1 week ago today, and when I'm worried, I'm still scared because we're in a nation of crazies. And one thing we did find out is we have security lapses, and so basically some major ass security gaps, and that's one thing this kid did point out. So like big ones, and so he's not well trained. There's a lot of very well trained psychotic weirdos out there, and that's worrisome. I mean, even for the old guy, Biden. I mean, COVID's getting him right now, but he's coming out of COVID, and Trump came out of the gunshot, and so I mean, I think it's interesting how people are equivocating the saying that Trump's gunshot is just as dangerous as Biden having COVID. Maybe Biden having COVID 4 years ago, yeah, but right now they got so many medicines and so many ways of taking care of it. The mortality rate for COVID is much. It's like dwarfed compared to what it was 4 years ago.
It's not zero, but at the same time, it's not someone physically taking a shot at you. You are just as dead either way. But it's not the same thing. One is nature, one is hatred, and hatred's much worse. And we can't control nature as much as we like to think that we can. But hatred is something we can definitely control.
It's a whole different podcast.
And people have to be responsible for hatred. You ain't got to be responsible for nature. Nature does what nature does.
Right.
But the whole thing's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's going to wrap it up here for this segment. We went a little bit long, but we want to thank you guys for staying tuned with us and hanging out with us. Remember to like us, subscribe to us, follow us, friend us, find us, and we're all over the internet and on social media platforms. And we are the Political Matrix News. I'm Greg Fink, and you're Scott Miller, and we'll be back.